The Federal High Court in Borno has ordered the release of over 300 suspected terrorists arrested by the military. The court ordered their release because there was no evidence to nail them. The suspects will be released to the Borno state government.
The court ordered the release for want of evidence after the conclusion of investigation and other ancillary matters. Now, these cases were prosecuted by the Department of Prosecution, Federal Ministry of Justice. And I wish to add that it is not the first time this will happen. It is a routine where they come, they check the cases of those awaiting trial, and then where they find that there is insufficient evidence, they order that those people in detention be released.
I'm joined now by Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is a security expert and CEO of the firm Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. Good to see you, Kabir, and thanks for your time. Quite a lot happening in the security space. But again, before we come back to Borno State, give us a sense of the developing story from Delta State, the back and forth around the community, and again now a traditional ruler has just turned himself in. What does this say about what we're dealing with at the moment, Kabir?
Thank you, Slim. I think the most important thing is the lesson that I would say the nations of Nigeria would probably learn from this development. As we did witness in previous times, after incidents like that, we saw a disproportionate use of force. But in this instance, what happened was the Nigerian people spoke as one in the development. And so that condemnation has resulted in even someone as important as the traditional ruler who was declared wanted now submitting himself. Hopefully, he will be tried. The evidence that the military gathered before they placed him on the wanted list would also be entered in a competent court of jurisdiction, and then his guilt or his innocence will be proven. And that is how a democratic society should be. And so to that regard, I'm quite delighted that as a nation, it seems we're progressing. We're moving from wanton abandon of the law, where disproportionate force is sometimes used when incidents like this happen, to a period where we were able to harness our national powers and speak as one, and to request for a redemption, as it were, for the victims of that unfortunate incident on the 14th of March. And I think it's work in progress.
And Kabir, how does it play out in cases like this? So when they say communities or people should volunteer, intelligence or information, does it really come easy in such locality when such are demanded of the people?
So it depends on, there are so many determinants. And the most important determinant, I think, is the almost united voice that Nigerians have spoken, in support of, this desire for intelligence, as it were, to be shared. But the other requirement, and I'm speaking almost specifically now to the intelligence community in Nigeria, what platforms have they made available for such information to be declared to them? I haven't seen that, and I'm being very specific here. I have not seen anywhere where telephone numbers, especially secure telephone numbers, have been provided. I've also not seen anywhere where individuals have been asked to come forward, as an example. Another thing that could be done is also to incentivize of that information. In other words, some form of reward for the volunteering of that information. It hasn't reached that stage. I think we're still at the first stage, but in stage 2, it's not out of place if reward is provided. And of course, the third one is the type of strategic information that we continue. The persons that died, we need to create an image around them, not just their names, but to provide their identity, provide who they are, so that the sentiments of Nigerians and anyone who has any information regarding what happened is also touched. And that's, I think, what I'm waiting for. All of this would know people volunteer information or not.
You know, speaking of which, when you talk about information deficiency you know, another problem has to do with what the news coming from Borno State. How is it that suspects paraded, arrested, tried, at the end of the day are freed on account of not having tangibles that would make them face the law in the first place? What are we not doing right in the fight against terrorism and other, you know, like crimes?
I'm also going to speak with a deep sense of responsibility for the things I'm going to say. Suleiman, some very bad things happened in the past, and I must commend the Bola Tinubu Ahmed administration, and in particular, the Minister, the Attorney General of the Federation, the Minister of Justice. I must commend him the effort he has put since he was sworn in, I think, around August last year. By virtue of what I do, just one company, and that's Beacon, we have over 500 names of people where they are. These are persons who are, you know, children, wives, husbands, and who just went missing for one reason or the other. And so their families have been trying to trace them. Now, some of them may be guilty, and others, as it were, are not guilty. Some of them have spent 5 years, others 10 years in captivity without being tried. And so when developments occur, it is a good progress in realization of our national counterterrorism strategy. The other component is studies have shown that this type of action where you know, persons are incarcerated, they are not tried, is one of the bases for the you know, ideological terrorist groups. They meet communities, they point out to them that security forces have been arresting your children, they've been arresting your brothers, and then they now recruit them into that. So where justice is seen to be meted and people who are innocent are released and some form of compensation is also to them, it is a very good development. And I think it's something that we must commend the current Minister of Justice for.
And Kabir, let's close on this good news and see if we can avert something happening in the future. The children are back to their community. Everyone is excited. How do we, moving forward, avert and ensure that these people and every other child in Nigeria is protected?
Suleiman, we have a national policy on safety, security, and violence-free schools, which was launched in 2021. Before then, we signed into Safe School Declaration. And then before then, in 2014, we signed the Safe School Initiative. All of these are national policies. So we don't need to invent anything new. As a security professional, each of these policies or documents that I've mentioned, I have gone through them. They are good. They are enough to provide adequate security and safety in our schools. What we need to do is to ensure their implementation. At the moment, the buy-in that should be gotten from the states is not as you know, as good as it should be. So I think one of the first steps we should do, the federal government should make effort to ensure that the states buy into these policies. And then after that, I think one other challenge is funding. Just a simple example, the national policy requires that each school should have a fence in the minimum. So to construct a fence, money is required, and that the funding for that has already been indicated, the money that we need for that. The question is, where do we get that money from? I think that is where the effort of both the federal government and the state government should be get into. We have development partners. that are ready to support us in that regard. So coming together as a nation to say enough is enough to implement that policy, I think it should be the beginning point. And I'm hoping that the president will provide that type of directive the same way he has addressed a lot of other issues. I'm hoping he would provide some leadership in that regard, perhaps have a committee to make sure that committee develops key performance indicators for the implementation of that national with timelines and timeframes that would monitor the implementation. If we do that, then perhaps we'll look back in the next 6 months and ask ourselves the question, how many schools in Nigeria at the moment have fences? How many schools at the moment have all the other components of the Safe School Initiative, as well as the national policy on safety, security, and free schools? Anything short of this, unfortunately, will not avoid a reoccurrence of the incident that happened in Chikun local government in Kaduna State.
Well, it's a pleasure to leave it tonight. Many thanks, Kabir Adamu, CEO, Beacon Security Consulting and Intelligence Limited.